everybody, and welcome to another episode of Connect Conversations. Today's conversation is all about selecting and implementing a CMMS system with special guest John Reeve, and it's brought to you as a part of Mobius Connect's ongoing YouTube series, Connect Conversations. I am Kim Fugger, the manager of Mobius Connect, and I will also be your moderator for today's session. First, I'd like to take a minute to introduce our hosts of Connect Conversations, global reliability improvement experts, Doug Plucknett and Ron Moore. Hi, guys. And before I officially pass the presentation over to them, I just want to encourage you guys here today, if you have any questions at all, please submit them through the chat function, and we will have Doug, Ron, and John answer them live on air today. And don't worry, they will answer your questions anonymously, so you don't need to feel like you'll get called out. All right, guys, I'm going to pass it officially over to you.
Okie dokie. Thank you. I wanted to make just a couple of comments before Doug and I hand it over to John, then I'll let Doug put in if he wants to, and then we'll, the majority, I think, of today's activity is going to be with John. He's the expert, not Doug or me. But I did have a couple of comments I think are really important. I tend to think in terms of policy, strategy, and structure. I don't know anything about the details of this. And Doug, you can put in just a second. One kind of big comment I wanted to make before we get into the detail is this. If the total number of defects overwhelm your ability to actually do a proper job planning and scheduling, then your planning and scheduling process will fail. And, so if you got lots of work planned and scheduled, and then every night something happens and comes in and just kind of disrupts everything, then it's very discouraging, and folks after a while go, yeah, what's the point? So that's a really, really important point, I think. And anyways, I've got some more comments as we go here. John, we may interrupt you from time to time just to put in or ask a question. Doug, you got anything?
Well, what I got is I met John just through a number of articles I did on LinkedIn, and a few of them that I complained quite loudly about CMMS systems or maintenance management systems that really didn't pay attention to understanding things like failure modes and failure codes and what went on in maintenance. And John was one of those guys that would pipe up and say, hey, if you didn't get what you asked for, it's because you really didn't describe what you needed, and maybe we need to talk more to the people. And so we started several kind of sidebar conversations that went really well. And John's one of those guys that works with the CMMS folks and really understands and has taken the time to learn about, what is good maintenance. So he's somebody that I've recommended through the years when companies are struggling with getting a good CMMS up and running. So I'm really pleased to have him here today as a guest. And just like you said, I'm going to try to sit back and be quiet and let him run, because he's the guy that really knows and understands this side of the business. So John, good to have you.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I could talk all day in return about Douglas and Ron Moore, but okay, time is short. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to talk about the ideal use of a CMMS, starting with selection and implementation, but more so we'll get into the utilization and optimization of the product. All right. Oh, come on now, here we go. So components of a complete system. Well, it's certainly more than just the software. It's software, process, and organization. So it really comes down to your understanding of asset management and creating a vision. And hopefully you have some reliability leaders and other decision makers and stakeholders that will help you create that roadmap and path forward. You can install the software in just a day. There's a lot of products out there. Who knows how many? Let's say there's 100. But what's the difference between all of these, and which one is best for your system, for your organization and industry rather? Leadership does have responsibilities. We would hope that they have a desire to be the best. I mean, especially if they want to stay in business. Create a vision for operational excellence. And number 3 there is the key point throughout my entire presentation, and you'll hear that word quite a bit, which is configurable. Configurable is not customization. It's something that is upgradable when the vendor does provide new versions. All right, I'm sure you have questions, and as Kim mentioned, you can send those in the chat, and we'll try to address those. But the worst case, an email would be best, and we can definitely respond to that. All right. Now, if you think the software once installed will improve reliability or even workforce productivity, that's simply wrong. Well, leave that as it is, and the software should be a key element within an asset management system. Was there a question there from Ron or Doug? We good? Okay. Now, if we were in a forum and we're face to face, I would try to qualify the audience. And I'd ask you, what is the industry purpose for having this type of software, and how do you plan to have it add value? Well, if you're coming from nothing, say just a paper system, well, the immediate or first benefit is to create electronic work orders, and so you can search on history and so on. But there's many more benefits and ways to add value beyond that. Now, it's also important, as Ron hinted at, that the software is just a tool, but you need to have key positions in place to help you make decisions from this software. And it'd be great if you had a reliability team. At this point, I would ask the audience, how many people have a reliability team, and do they use the failure data that's in the system? And as I have discovered over the years, 3 decades of field consulting, very few have that capability currently. Now, who runs the CMMS? The last answer there is no one. That would be bad. Or it could be just one individual. That guy, he or she ends up controlling the entire product. But my preferred answer is the core team there. We can take a quick look at this chat here. I don't know. Okay, fine. Yeah, no worries. And what's going on here? All right, next. All right, what challenges? A lot of organizations already have this CMMS. It's already been implemented. However, here they are 5-10 years later, and they have a lot of bad data. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, it's difficult to run analytical reports. Now, I'm not talking just a work order print, but analytical reports which actually promote decision-making. What is it that you would like to do? You've had this product now for a long time, but you've struggled to perform a particular function. Maybe it's a weekly schedule. Maybe it's a failure analysis with using the data in the system. And has anyone in the organization received advanced training? Maybe there's certifications or not. And have you sought knowledge on the subject? There's lots of books out there. Doug has his book called RCM Blitz, and then Ron Moore has several books that he can mention those in a second. I'm just trying to think. Trying to make things simple. I said that wrong. Ron, what is your book?
It's making common sense, common practice, right?
Yes.
What tool when, and among others. So and defect elimination is another one. So
yeah, and that's a great topic. Very few know about that subject, defect elimination.
Yep.
Okay. So again, in my humble opinion, what would be the most significant criteria? And my answer is going to be configurable product, configurable software rather. Okay. Now there's been surveys. This is an old survey, but and it said that only 19% of respondents felt their CMMS, they called it AIMS, fully supports the effective asset management. Well, that's a small amount. And so what the heck are we doing? Now here's a Deloitte survey by Deloitte. They said fewer than 5%. That's a small number. Of all companies establish an asset management framework. And you can read that. ROAA, this is a term that Ron knows, but I made a hidden slide here. Let's click on that puppy. And return on average assets shows how well a company uses its assets to generate profits. And there's the formula example on the far left. I don't have time to go through this detail here, but I'm just saying that that's the end game right there. Okay, so poor outcome occurs when there are missing foundational elements. Well, it's hard to do wonderful things when the foundation data is there, or you don't have a core team, or the culture is bad. I went to one site the first day I show up. I visited the maintenance shop, and went back there, and they knew I was coming, and they knew that I was a software consultant for some particular product. And before I could even say anything, one guy turns to me and says directly, your software sucks. Okay, and he was dead serious. And so that would be a culture issue. Yeah, all right. I'm not sure I ever convinced him otherwise. Hey, I know this is a busy slide, but let's just look at the blue boxes. Let's just look at the blue boxes here. And if I tried to put my thoughts on paper, what would be benefits from having a CMMS? But let's narrow that to two. And the answers can be different depending upon the organization, the site, and the industry. And I'll tell you right now, my answers are workforce productivity and reducing reactive maintenance. And if you're going to use this software to help you achieve those goals and acquire those benefits, then you need to plan out, create a roadmap as shown here.
John, just a comment here.
Yeah.
I've got quite a bit of data that says the more reactive you are, the greater risk of injury. So if you're concerned about safety, and everybody says that's a top priority, then you better lower the level of reactive maintenance. So
yeah, exactly.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. And there's worker safety is one of my blue boxes right there. Yeah, good one.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is my theory also. I think there's two disparate worlds out there. You have the software guys, CMMS practitioners, and including the CMMS vendors. They're all about creating software and selling that software. The practitioners in that same world, they're all about the technology. That's that group. I'm trying to define them. Then on the right hand, you've got your maintenance and reliability professionals, especially the reliability professionals. They would be represented by a reliability team. And when the practitioners implemented the software, did they even invite the reliability engineer? Probably not. And when the plant manager says, we have increasing breakdowns occurring in the plant and costs are going up, can the reliability team run a analytical report, such as a bad actor report from the system, and have it identify the bad actors? Odds are you cannot do this. Well, you might want to rethink about that and then figure out a way to set the system up to run that report. Speaking of the software, the CMMS vendors, I have not encountered a single user site using whatever CMMS software that has a built-in bad actor report. And so the takeaway there is maybe this should be something you configure the system to have, and then you have to support that report with the proper data. Okay. Well, it may be the stakeholders in the organization are not even sure what they should be, how they should be using this system. And you certainly cannot assume the vendors understand reliability-centered maintenance. Wouldn't it be wonderful, Doug, if they all read your book?
That's just that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. when the CMMS, okay, I already said that, disjointed information, you need to be, you need to have, as a CMMS administrator and core team, you need to have a data quality plan. And I call it proactive error checks. So periodically you run these error checks looking for problems in the system. Okay. The majority of all sites, they have the CMMS and they have a library of preventive maintenance and PDM technologies. But if they were asked point blank, can they defend that content? I mean, who created that monthly PM? And is it still needed? Should it be quarterly? Is it even the right strategy? Some consulting firms perform PM optimization, and their studies indicate that you could be doing PM work that's no longer required or never made sense. And in some cases, you can even induce failures by doing these PMs. So you're hurting yourself. And of course, it adds to cost, unnecessary cost. Okay. Too much emphasis on technology. Yes, Ron.
Yeah, just a comment there. The studies I've read by people like Steve Turner and so on, they indicate, something on the order of 10, 20% of the PMs out there are just not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And, a big chunk of them, a third maybe, you could do less often. Maybe there's a few, 5 or 10%, you need to do more often. And some of them need to be replaced with condition monitoring. The PMs that are present out there are typically not high value adding, I guess I would say, and so that's just some data for you from what I've seen. You've probably seen similar data.
Well, John, there is a question for you here that's popped up. Somebody's asked, is there a strategy for production company to be able to adapt to a new computer-aided maintenance management operating system?
A strategy.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you're one person and you're listening to this presentation. You've done a fair amount of reading on the subjects of asset management and reliability-centered maintenance, and but your leadership is not on board. Where they're just not informed. And so, what can you do as one person? Well, that would be a presentation in itself, Doug and Ron. Providing ideas as one person. What are the things you could do to get the attention of leadership and get them to follow? I'd walk in the door of a roadmap. If I'm that guy, I would make a roadmap, as I showed you a couple slides back. And that's where I'd start. Okay, so the last takeaway on this slide is, you got the software guys on the left and the reliability professionals on the right, and sometimes they attend conferences. Well, the software guys attend what? Software conferences, and the reliability professionals attend non-software or theory side. There's probably a better name for that, but wouldn't it be great if they attended the same conference and they probably walk away better informed? All right. Odds are great that you have the maintenance organization might have a fail and fix mindset, and they're doing root cause analysis, but are they running a bad actor report? Are they performing chronic failure analysis to get ahead of the curve? Odds are not. So to create a proactive mindset, there's a lot here on the slide. Sorry. You need the roles. Asset manager would help. Core team, as I mentioned, reliability team for sure. Some organizations have a reliability team, but they're just performing condition monitoring. They're not doing the things that I would want them to do, such as running that bad actor report and leveraging data. The key processes here are chronic failure, in my opinion, chronic failure analysis and weekly maintenance scheduling. And there's the data quality plan. And then here are some bullets on advanced design, which require most of the times require configuration. So let's talk more about the software here. So the hundreds of products, but when you start looking at them, they all make work orders, and they all can store in the asset registry. And so what makes one product better than another? Well, what are these CMMS vendors thinking, and what is it their objective? Well, at the end of the day, their objective is to sell the software, and we need their product, but they're not necessarily in tune with reliability centered maintenance, which I think is quite important to be successful. Every company wants to stay in business, and so hopefully they want to continually improve. And wouldn't it be great if they could utilize the CMMS to help them become better than become best in class? The savvy users will analyze product functionality compared to their needs, so that's great. But even then, they might misinterpret a sales brochure. So if you're about to you're researching and you're about to purchase a CMMS, the sales brochure might say words, well, if you use our software, we will improve reliability. Well, that's a subject in itself. So what's the answer? Go ahead, Ron.
Can I make a quick suggestion here? Because I've been in this position. If you're out there and you're looking for a CMMS, and you go out there and let's say you go see product A, you go see product B or product C, or you have them come in and do demonstrations, don't ask those people for their references. Go to LinkedIn and just put it out there and say, hey, I'm looking for some people that use product A, right? And start a little conversation with them and ask them how satisfied they are with that product, right? And take a good sample, take 5-10 people for each product, right? And you'll get better feedback that way. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the 3 that you go visit or have come in, they're going to give you 3 or 4 that they know are happy with their product, right?
Yeah.
So or attend the conference, as you said, right?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit. I've been letting the first question there incubate a little bit, and as I understand it, somebody out there is going to go from one platform to another platform, and so and you said develop a roadmap. I just wanted to maybe add to that what are the current issues, problems, difficulties you're having? What are the problems? What are you trying to accomplish? How will this new system support your accomplishing that, and how do you know that? And the last question, or maybe an answer to the question, is what's it worth? What are you wasting today that this new system will solve, and how do you know that it will in fact do that? So you need to go in, because if I'm sitting in their chair, I'm going to go, well, hell, I just buy you a new system and you screw that one up too.
Yeah.
So I'm not that interested unless you've got unless it's clear that you've gone through that, as you said, roadmap, and I know what it's worth. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Doug and Ron. Yeah. Well, another busy slide. Here we go. That's what I do. So there's
plenty of detail. By the way, are you going to send these to the guys who attended so they can peruse them at their leisure?
That'd be fine. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
All right. So you have your standard functions of the CMMS, but doesn't mean that the administrator will implement them. And as a user, you may not even know that the administrator never turned that feature on. That's a key point right there. That's why I'd like to recommend a core team. Now, SR is service request to work order conversion. So, a standard modifier dictionary. That's so your parts in the inventory module all have standard descriptions. I mean, I went to one site where they had 200 filters. That's it, filters in the description, FILTERS. So if I'm the maintenance guy on off hours and I'm trying to search the gosh darn parts warehouse for a filter, I'm never going to find it. So auto spare part creation. And inventory, auto reorder, escalation. Yeah, you can read that. But the things on the right require configuration normally. And again, this is sort of product specific, and it may not be applicable to the software you're using, but you can read that there at your leisure. I'm going to move on. Now, why does the product need to be highly configurable? This is sort of hard to explain. Most organizations, well, the first comment there is some organizations do not wish to be best in class. And, they just want the software because for some reason someone said they should have it, and what they want to make work orders. Or an asset management system should consist of the software process and organization where culture is the glue. That's a positive comment. So it should be a core business system, and you require a proactive mindset. So now there's the configuration requirement. Not every organization has the proper knowledge in leadership or decision makers. And so this takes time to acquire if in fact that becomes one of their objectives. Okay.
Can I jump in here quick?
Yeah, please.
Somebody's made a comment that it says until CMMS can produce a precise unplanned work order report, we cannot trust the bad actor report it will produce. And this slide really speaks to that, right? If the system is configurable, you can be able to put together a 3-part failure mode. So when something fails, you got a part, a problem, a specific cause of failure. That helps to make sure that bad actor report is actually something that we're seeing out there and what the causes are. So I just wanted to make sure that got brought in because somebody typed it up here. All right.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of having accurate data. There's the data quality plan. And, it's more than just having accurate data, it's having the right data. And so there may not be a single CMMS on the market out of the box that captures a 3-part failure mode. Boy, we could underline that statement. And so if you don't capture that failure mode, it's going to be difficult to integrate that with the RCM analysis. All right, so let's talk about data. There's the bad data. If you go to Google right now, this is back in November 2020, and you put in the words bad data, 2 words, and you hit the search, and there's 6,290 hits. There's probably more than that right now. It's a big deal. It's a major problem. Duplicate data, missing data, inaccurate data, incorrect data, several ways to look at it. If those issues aren't addressed, then it makes it hard to make decisions. So, there's a site I've been working with fairly recently. They've been entering the right failure codes for years now. And the guy in charge, he said that, we sent every month, we sent an email to maybe 10 people saying, these are the trends and failures that we're seeing. And that's the end of the email. And so it's like he's sending it to the maintenance manager, the reliability engineer, so on and so forth. But no single person on that global email has responsibility for responding. And furthermore, it doesn't provide enough information to drill down to find the actual cause. And so nothing happens. There's also implementation of materials management best practices. I don't have time to go into this, but those are things you want to avoid. There are a lot of no's. But culture. Ron speaks to this subject, the culture eats strategy for breakfast. Someone famous said that, I forget who, but okay, thanks. But I found a great picture there. Poor culture will affect data accuracy. As I mentioned in my story earlier, I'm going to move on quickly. Now, how do you fix bad data? Well, again, that could be an hour-long topic right there. It can be done. Okay. Create a path forward. Yep. And I help organizations create a long-range plan, but before we even begin to do that, let's list all of the challenges, as Ron said, and the issues. The issues could be software, bad data. It could be process procedure, they don't exist, and it could be culture. And so all of those get into a punch list, and those are things you want to attack. Now the question becomes, well, what do we do first? Safety is priority number one. Reliability is priority number one. Okay, or what is it? So beware of possible roadblocks. Okay, no executive support, not enough time, yep, unclear vision, inaccurate data, resistance to change, a lack of training. That's the first time we've mentioned that, but that should have been done earlier. Lack of standards, absence of a long-range plan. If you were had gotten approval from leadership to, okay, let's make an improvement project, and we're going to try to follow this roadmap you've created, and you've got all of these people organization that have a role within asset management. I've discovered that you've got three groups. The early adopters, they always follow whatever new project comes along, and they want to do good for the company and for leadership. Okay, fine, early adopters. Then you got the laggards. These are individuals that they're always against any type of change, and that's just the way they are. The middle group, they're the largest group, which is a good thing, and they should be the group that you focus your project team on and with, in terms of communicating the benefits and reasons for performing these changes. But there's a strange thing about that middle group. They're going to say, well, we're going to support you, but if this project fails, we may speak up and say, you should have listened to us and followed some of these alternative solutions. So you need to make sure that they are on board and stay on board. That's the main takeaway there. Okay. 4 ways to enhance profitability. Again, it's a busy slide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, perform failure analysis using the CMMS, not just sitting around the table and giving me subjective conclusions. Maximize asset performance. Well, sensors are a big thing today, trying to predict failure. But you know what? You can get the world's best sensors. There's all sorts of them. Get them installed in your plant, even wireless sensors, right?
Yep.
But what? Well, why did it fail? So yeah, the sensor tells you it failed. It's about to fail, or it did fail, and you fix it. Okay. But then here we are 3 months later, and the sensor says it's about to fail, and it did fail. It keeps failing. And so, Doug, you have a name for that. What do you call it?
You put me right on the spot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Those are dominant failure modes.
It's called the sawtooth.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the answer you gave me on a LinkedIn question I gave you like 5 years ago. And I always remember that. Yeah, sawtooth. And so it's important to capture the failure data, the 3-part failure mode, because what? That third part is what? It's the cause. And if you can capture that cause, you can eliminate these things, the defects, as Ron would say, from occurring over and over again. Boy, there's a subject. Improve productivity. Yep. Enhance asset integrity, worker safety. All right. There's no hand. You've got this $1 million software. It's right there in front of you, but there's no product yet that I'm aware of where a hand jumps out of the screen and says, hey, look here. This is the most problematic asset. This is where you need to focus. That's not going to happen unless you create the bad actor report and you set up the proper sort metric. Okay, here's a vision. ROAA, which we defined earlier briefly. And this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 year, 5-year plan, whatever. First year targets are shown there, and goals and objectives at the bottom. Advanced processes that are required on the left, and your measurements. One of my favorite metrics for sorting the bad actor is the average annual maintenance cost divided by replacement cost. mean, you certainly can't go with the number of work orders against an asset. That would be ridiculous. And many people even question the value of mean time between failure as a metric. So, okay. Yes,
Just a comment, it'll tell you the trend in terms of whether or not it's getting better, but it won't tell you much about, well, anything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it's useful in that regard.
Okay.
But most failures are random, so mean time between failure is not very meaningful in
There you go.
that light.
Yeah.
So, but it will tell you whether or not you're getting better with the assets.
Mhm. All right. Well, when we talk about CMMS implementation, you could have the very first step is installation, and then product setup, and then data loading, and then training, and then go live. Yeah, there's your go live on the upper left. Hopefully you have a core team that's established and you begin using the software. Over time, the entire organization becomes comfortable with navigation of that software. So you're learning the software, and of course, the software training was performed, but it has to be re-performed sometimes. But how do we get to best-in-class status? Yeah. And so that long-range plan I talked about, you need to brainstorm all of your improvement ideas, identify the challenges, of course, identify the end game. Maybe you do that even first. And then you create the long-range plan, which could become a real schedule. So some possible issues, there's the data quality problem, and then inadequate training. Best practice knowledge needs to be acquired. Reliability engineer needs to be involved. Yep, culture. These are issues to be addressed. And so you might, in the long range plan might include an optimization action plan. And there's 14 steps. It starts, it's not just software, obviously. You need to have the right people involved, reliability engineer, reliability team, utilization plan as a process procedure, and the data quality plan. RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed chart, standard operating procedure, business rules, failure analytic. Yep. And I wish we had time for me to show you the three-part failure mode, but maybe we can do that at a later date.
Doug could probably tell you right now.
Yeah. Yes. When I read his book for the first time, that of all the books I was given to read, that one really hit home. And I'm this at that moment in my life, I was the software guy, and I'm saying, well, how can I take these wonderful ideas and get that into the product? And so I spent months thinking about that, and eventually wrote my own book there, Failure Modes to Failure Codes. Okay. Yep. Work order feedback. You might be surprised how much the operators as well as the maintainers know about your assets. But if you don't ask them, well, guess what? They're never going to tell you. I mean, the maintainer may know that there's a maintainability issue with one or more of these assets. What is maintainability? Well, it's the ability to diagnose the problems with the asset, but it could also be something as basic as access to the asset when the maintainer is there at the location. So it has two definitions, but yeah, I mean, if he communicated that as an issue, maintainability could be something that is addressed. And the operator in a similar scenario could have an asset. He's required to take a reading during his rounds, but the gosh darn gauge is on top of the water tank, which is like 14, 16 feet in the air, and he has to sort of climb up there to get close to it. And he's stepping on the pipe lagging and whatnot. There's no
I've got a
ladder.
real life example for you.
Yeah, give it to me, Doug.
Yeah, I had a pickup truck that had a leak in the oil pan. Well, it corroded, and the only way to get that oil pan out was either to drop the front axle out of the truck or pull the motor.
Yeah,
Right.
Wow.
That's maintainability right there.
absolutely.
So,
Chevrolet Vega.
yeah.
Okay.
And it was a relatively new vehicle. I was shocked to find it that way, but needless to say, pick the one that costs the less and get it the least to get it done, right?
Mhm.
Or do it yourself, whichever. I'm not into that level of detail at this point in my life any longer. If I was 21, I probably would have done it myself, but no. There you go.
Yeah, so lower left-hand corner.
You,
Go ahead, Ron.
if you see that kind of problem, like that automotive maintenance thing, it may not be an accident. That may be a planned thing to keep you going to the dealership.
Oh,
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
all right. In the lower part of this screen
I
here.
also wanted to point out that if you got something like that valve up on that gauge up on top,
Yeah,
you've
William.
now introduced a real safety hazard.
Oh, yeah, there's several issues there. Thank you, William Harwood. In the lower left-hand corner of this screen, you know, if you get to that lucky point where you're about to create a long-range plan, you've got all these things you want to tackle as a project team. I mean, what should you do first? The main takeaway I want to say here is shortest path to value. Some organizations may choose the simple things. Okay, if it's a short task and it's simple, go for it. But if it's a long one, I would refocus more on what would deliver the shortest path to value and make sure you take that into account. And my answer there is the 3-part failure mode. All right. Well, we can talk all day about how to implement a product properly, but it's the surrounding process and procedure where the greatest improvement will most likely be made. And so three words to remember: software, process, and organization. Organizations might spend a lot of money on the installation and subsequent go live, but they are dissatisfied with the results. In another category, some are generally satisfied. And so my question to you in the audience is what level of satisfaction are you after? What is it you want to do, as Ron said? So it's up to leadership to create the vision, yeah, and execute that vision. But maybe there's some in the audience that, you know, I'm just one person and I'm not the CEO. How can I convince leadership to consider a proper rollout? And that is my presentation. We can take questions.
An interesting comment, John, that I got from a customer just this year, that they were dissatisfied with being able to get a good bad actors report. They said, geez, we struggled and fought and tried 5 or 6 different things. And then we went to our DCS that the operations folks use and simply looked at which alarms came in most often and started there. And it's just one of those things that you go, well, you know, what was the cause of the alarm? And they said, well, that's what we didn't know, but we had to go somewhere to say, you know, what are the things that are bothering us most? What are the little things that are eating our lunch that we end up sending maintenance people out to do? And you would hope that your CMMS does that, but one of the things that can happen is if you don't get it right at the first pass, you got to take the time to stop and listen to the guys that are out there, it being the end user on a daily basis. So in other words, I get a work order, right? I'm supposed to put comments in on it, and that in the end is what lots of places start looking for when they're trying to find bad actors is what did the maintenance guy put in? What did they say? Right?
Yes.
And what do you hear back on that from customers?
Well, the important thing is to ask the working level, ask the working level for their input on a regular basis. And show them the benefit. If we capture the right data, this is what we can do with this system.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so to do that, you need to make it simple, don't you?
Yeah, yes.
Right? Because the answer that you get from most places is the maintenance guy puts in the minimum amount of information it takes to close the work order out. Right.
Yeah.
And those same guys will tell you, well, now we can't get our bad actors report. And you say, it depends on you. You're the person that in the end, what caused it to fail? What are those three things? Part, problem, specific cause. So make it simple to do that. And that's what your book talks about, failure modes and failure codes, right?
Yeah. And so, anyone else have questions, jump in. I'm just going to add to Doug's thoughts here. The majority of all CMMS products, if they capture failure data, they're capturing the asset problem code. Well, guess what? The RCM failure mode does it better, and it captures the component problem code. And you need that to marry up with the RCM analysis and prevent and capture that cause and prevent recurrence. Yep. We didn't talk much about scheduling, but let's say there's we know there's thousands of sites around the world using a CMMS product, but very few of them have a weekly schedule, and very few, extremely less than very few, whatever those words are, have an automated resource leveled weekly maintenance schedule. And so, it is what it is. The software people haven't figured that out, but it's actually more than a software issue. It's a data and process issue that prevents that from happening.
By the way, these are the conversations that caused John and I to become friends for the years, because I'm the person that sits back and says, I think the software people know that, but they also know that they can charge to configure. Right. Gosh, they've been doing this for 40 years now. They ought to know that there's such a thing as a 3-part failure mode, or that you need a bad actors report, or that you need to be able to manage your spares down to the component and part level, and there needs to be a good hierarchy and blah, 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 blah. But realistically, they come in with bare bones and say, what would you like? And force everybody to do it over again, rather than say, here's the model that 80% of our customers prefer.
Yeah. Well, I know for a fact there are some major companies in the utility space that are successfully implementing the 3-part failure mode, Doug. I'm not sure I told you that before, but they've read the book, and perhaps both of our books, and they're pursuing this design, and they've actually succeeded in implementing it. And so, and further, they've added Doug, when you perform the RCM analysis, I've designed an application to actually store the results of that inside the CMMS. And so now in your left hand, the maintenance guy encounters an asset with a functional failure. He reports the 3-part failure mode. He saves the work order, and he's all done. He's got the actuals in there too. And at that moment, you could have the CMMS electronically compare the work order 3-part failure mode to the RCM analysis for that asset, and the defined failure modes known to that point. And with that analysis, I mean, imagine the conversation that would come from that, and you electronically route those differences to the right people.
Great stuff. All right, we are pretty close to our end here. Ron, you've been quiet today. Any comments?
Well, John's the expert. I don't, all the detail is, beyond my, ability or comprehension. I tend to, again, focus on policy, strategy, structure, that sort of thing. Just had a couple of comments for everybody out there. One of them is, I agree with Doc Palmer, and that is you should schedule 100% of the available hours in a given week, but allow for breaks to the schedule. And if you do that, you get more work done and you'll make better decisions about what truly needs to break into your existing schedule. It kind of forces a deliberate decision as opposed to just, calling on whoever's held in reserve. Another is try to make 1% or so of your work orders for improvement. So you actually go in and do defect elimination as a part of your work process. And then maybe the last, a couple more real quickly. Wrench time, tool time spent on the tools. If you're going to measure that, don't use it as a club to beat your people because they're not working.
Yeah.
They'll work if you do a proper job planning and scheduling the work. So if you do a wrench time study, make sure you assure people that it's to find out where the obstacles are for their getting the work done, not to beat them with the club.
Yeah.
So, and about one person per 20 maintenance technicians. I've seen one for 12 that works really well. So the idea there is the planner scheduler activity improves the productivity of all the rest of the guys. So if you got 20 guys, maybe you could create 30 if you do a really good job there. So anyways, that's just a few quick comments on that. I could go on, but I won't. Don't have time.
All right. Well, fellas, John, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it. I know it's really a broad-based subject to try to cover in an hour. So as Ron pointed out, John would be willing to pass along these slides if you would like to see that slide deck to be able to study those things a little bit more. Do you have, John, your I believe your email is down there in the lower left-hand corner.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
For people to contact you. John is also on LinkedIn. And as I said, he's one of those guys that, if you're looking for somebody to come help you get out of the weeds with your CMMS, John would be a great resource to get a hold of.
Well, thank you, Doug.
So, John, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
You bet. I'm glad to participate in this type of dialogue. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Tim, are you going to jump in here and tell us to hush?
No, I'm never going to tell you to hush, but I just want to thank you all for this great conversation. John, would you give the title of your book, please, for the listeners?
Failure modes to failure codes. Failure codes. Yeah. Failure modes.
Thank you.
Failure code. You bet. Thank you.
And Doug, can you give the name of your book for the listeners?
Reliability Center Maintenance using RCM Blitz.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Just in case anybody here today wanted to grab those books or get a deeper understanding of the CMMS here and reliability. But again, Don, I knew I was going to do it. Ron, John, and Doug, for your awesome time here today. Thank you. On behalf of our entire team here at Mobius Connect, thank you to our very wonderful audience, and thank you all for participating in the conversation today. As a quick reminder, you can see all past episodes of Connect Conversations on YouTube. Be on the lookout as new episodes typically air every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. If you are interested in engaging with other industry professionals or would like to participate in the industry's live feed and forums over on Mobius Connect, you can visit mobiusconnect.com to create your free profile. Make sure you follow us on social media to stay up to date with the latest community happenings. And if you have any questions at all or want to get in touch with Doug, Ron, or John, you can email our team here at info@mobiusconnect.com. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Our next episode is Aligning and Marketing the Manufacturing Strategies. Have a good one, guys.